Andre Washington was 38 years old, and for 18 months after his divorce, Diane had written him off completely. He was the man she called not enough across a dark kitchen table, before walking out to marry a real estate developer who drove a better car and made bigger promises. Andre didn't beg, didn't break. He went quiet, the way a man goes quiet when he has already decided something. While Diane was planning a Buckhead wedding with gold-embossed invitations and a guest list built to impress, Andre was rebuilding in the dark, methodically, without an audience. So, when that cream envelope arrived in his mailbox, a wedding invitation bearing his ex-wife's name and the other man's, she expected humiliation. She expected him to feel small. She expected him to stay home. Andre Washington did not stay home. He walked through those venue doors in a suit that cost more than his first car payment, and the woman on his arm stopped the room cold. And when Diane's eyes found them across that atrium, her champagne glass froze halfway to her lips, and she stopped laughing. Before we jump into the story, comment where in the world you are watching from and subscribe, because tomorrow's story is one you need to hear. The coffee had been cold for 40 minutes. Andre Washington didn't mind. He'd stopped tasting it somewhere around the third manifest, his thumb scrolling through line items on the tablet, while the parking lot held its breath around him. 5:47 in the morning. Atlanta still dark. The warehouse behind him humming with the low, steady sound of refrigeration units doing their job. He liked this hour. It belonged to him in a way that nothing between 7 a.m. and 10 p.m. ever fully did. No calls, no decisions that required anyone else. Just him, the numbers, and the quiet knowledge that the numbers were going in the right direction. His F-150 was 6 years old. Immaculate. He detailed it himself last Saturday, the way he did every second weekend. Methodical, thorough. Because if something was worth having, it was worth keeping. The interior smelled like leather conditioner and black ice. The back seat held a change of clothes in a dry cleaning bag and a pair of steel-toed boots he'd never actually needed but kept there anyway, just in case. That was Andre. Just in case. He closed the tablet, set it on the passenger seat, let himself sit for a moment in the particular quiet that exists before the world starts asking things of you. His apartment was 12 minutes away. 2 bedrooms, 3rd floor of a building that was nothing special from the outside, and nothing special from the inside either. Just clean lines, clean surfaces, every object in it chosen deliberately and cared for accordingly. The 2nd bedroom had become an office 8 months ago, when the freight partnership started generating enough volume to require actual filing system. There was a real desk in there now, a whiteboard with routing maps on it, a sense of purpose that occupied space. The wedding photo had lived in the bottom drawer of that desk for 11 months, face down. He hadn't been able to throw it away, and hadn't been able to look at it. So he'd done the only logical thing, put it somewhere it couldn't look at him. He'd thrown it away in March, a Tuesday. Not because he'd made a decision about it exactly, but because he'd reached into that drawer for a stapler and felt the frame and thought, with complete neutrality, this doesn't belong here anymore. He'd put it in the recycling bin, then moved it to the trash, because some things shouldn't be recycled. That had been that. The divorce had been finalized 18 months ago, but the marriage had ended 11 months before that. He could give you the exact date if you asked. He would never volunteer it. Diane had told him on a Wednesday. Kitchen table, lights off because neither of them had thought to turn them on when the sun went down, and somewhere in the conversation, neither of them had wanted to. She'd used the phrase outgrown twice. She'd used the phrase more than this once. She'd told him about Victor. 7 months, she said, as if the number was supposed to mean something other than what it meant. Andre had listened to all of it. He was a good listener. It was one of the things she'd always said she loved about him. When she finished, he'd asked one question. Is that everything? She'd said yes. He'd nodded. He'd stood up, turned on the kitchen light, and washed the 2 cups that were sitting in the sink. He never told Darnell about the cups. Some things were too private to translate. His phone buzzed. "Darnell, you at the warehouse already?" Andre typed back, "Manifests won't read themselves." 3 seconds later, "Man, get some help." Andre smiled. Small. Real. He pulled out of the parking lot and headed home. Darnell Washington was 3 years older, 4 inches taller, and constitutionally incapable of letting anything go unaddressed. Former Marine. Currently working property acquisitions for a mid-size county office, and using the access that came with that job in ways that were entirely legal and occasionally very useful. He'd watched the divorce happen from 3 miles away and 2 phone calls a week, and he'd said very little throughout because he understood instinctively that Andre didn't need commentary. He needed time. He'd gotten his time. Now there was a freight company. Now there was a second bedroom that looked like something. Now there was an account balance that no longer made Andre's chest tighten when he checked it. The building wasn't the same one he'd shared with Diane. He'd moved 14 months ago. He'd kept the furniture she didn't want and replaced everything she'd taken, piece by piece, until the apartment felt like a place he'd chosen rather than a place he'd been left in. That distinction mattered to him more than he could easily explain. He parked, took the cold coffee with him because he didn't waste things, checked the freight update on his phone on the way through the lobby, stopped at the bank of silver mailboxes by the elevator. His key, his box. Routine. Then he stopped. A cream-colored envelope. Heavy. The kind of weight that announces itself. Embossed gold lettering caught the lobby light and threw it back at him. He read it once. He read it again. Mr. Andre Washington is cordially invited to celebrate the marriage of Diane Elaine Pearson and Victor James Garrett. The cold coffee was still in his hand. He stood there a moment, very still. The elevator opened behind him and closed again without him. He read it a 3rd time, standing at the mailbox. Not because he didn't understand it. He understood it perfectly on the first pass. He read it a 3rd time because he wanted to be sure he was seeing it the way it actually was. Not through anger, not through whatever complicated thing lived underneath anger, just clearly. The way he read a manifest. The way he read a contract. Diane Elaine Pearson and Victor James Garrett. Victor's name was larger. He noticed that immediately. He slid the invitation back into its envelope, tucked it under his arm, and took the elevator up. Inside, he set it on the kitchen counter, put the cold coffee next to it, stood there for a moment in the clean, quiet apartment, with the early morning light just beginning to push through the blinds. Then he picked up his phone and called Darnell. It rang twice. "You see me texting you and you're calling me back?" Something happened. Something happened. A pause. When Darnell spoke again, his voice had shifted. The teasing was gone, replaced by the particular alertness of a man who had spent 4 years responding to things in the dark. "Talk to me. I got a piece of mail this morning." Andre read it to him. All of it. The formal language. The gold embossing he could still feel under his thumb. Diane's name. Victor's name. He read it the way he'd read it himself. Flat, precise, without editorializing. The silence on the other end lasted about 2 seconds. "She sent you a wedding invitation." Darnell's voice was low. "To her wedding. To the man she left you for." "That's what it says. Andre. I heard you." "No, Andre. She sent you a wedding invitation to her wedding to the man she was sleeping with for 7 months, while you were paying her student loans and sitting with her mama in a hospital waiting room and—" A sound. Something between a laugh and something that wasn't a laugh at all. "She sent you an invitation." "She did. That is the most—" Darnell stopped. Started again. "That's not a mistake. You don't accidentally mail that. She wanted you to get it. She wanted you to sit with it. I know. I know you know." Andre set the envelope down and moved to the window. Atlanta was waking up below him, slow and orange. Question is why? Because she wanted to win something. Because she needed to see you small one more time before she walked down that aisle and told herself she made the right call. Darnell's voice had the tightness it got when he was choosing his words more carefully than usual. She wanted you to feel it. The whole thing. Look what I have. Look where I ended up. Look at what you weren't enough to keep. Andre didn't say anything. There's something else, Darnell said. The way he said it made Andre go still. I ran a title search after the divorce. I know I didn't tell you. I needed to know, man. For myself. A beat. Victor Garrett put a deposit on a house in Diane's name 4 months before she filed. 4 months, Andre. That house was under contract before she ever sat down at that kitchen table with you. The light outside was going from orange to white. When did the tax return clear? Andre asked. March. She filed in April. He had already suspected something like this. Not the specific shape of it. Not the house. Not the 4 months. But the general shape. The exit had been too clean. Too prepared. Diane had always been organized when she was motivated, and the settlement she'd proposed had been detailed in ways that took time to construct. He'd suspected. Now he knew. Something in him didn't heat up the way you might expect. It went the other direction. Cooler. More specific. Like a lens adjusting to bring something into focus that had always been there, just slightly blurred. She didn't leave because she fell out of love, he said. No. She left because she was done with the setup phase. Yeah. Darnell's voice was quiet now. Careful. Andre, I'm sorry. I should have told you sooner. You're telling me now. He turned from the window. Keep digging, quietly. Whatever else is attached to Victor Garrett's business, his LLCs, his properties, anything that touches what they built together. Don't rush it. Just keep pulling the thread. Already am. A pause. So what are you going to do? Andre picked up the invitation, turned it over once in his hand, looked at Victor's name, large, embossed, certain of itself. I'm going to RSVP, yes. The silence on the other end was total. Andre, what are you? He ended the call. He set the invitation on the counter, propped against the backsplash where he could see it. Then he went to make fresh coffee. The valet took the truck without a word, but he watched them walk away. Andre didn't notice. Kenya did, and she didn't react. Because she never did. She was used to being watched. She had been watched her entire professional life. In courtrooms, in conference rooms, in hallways where people expected her to be someone's assistant. She had long since stopped performing for it. She wore a deep burgundy dress, simple and structured, the kind that required a certain stillness to carry correctly. She carried it correctly. Her hair was up. Her earrings were gold. She looked like a woman arriving somewhere she had every right to be, which was everywhere. Andre had on a charcoal suit, fitted and unhurried. He'd spent more on it than he told Darnell. He did not feel guilty about this. They walked through the main entrance of the venue together, her hand resting in the crook of his arm, and the room, tall ceilings, warm light, white florals stacked to the height of a man, received them the way rooms receive people who expect to be received. The cocktail hour was already moving. Servers circled with trays. A string quartet worked through something low and formal in the corner. The guest list was exactly what you'd expect from Victor Garrett. Real estate contacts in expensive watches, a few local political types, women in dresses that announced what their husbands earned. Andre moved through it the way he moved through a warehouse floor on a complicated day. Unhurried, oriented, reading the space without appearing to read it. Kenya, for her part, was already cataloging. She recognized 2 men near the bar from a commercial litigation case her firm had worked 18 months ago, both of them mid-level in Victor's business orbit. both of them present at depositions she had reviewed but not taken. She filed this away without expression and accepted a glass of sparkling water from a passing tray. "Corner table near the windows," Andre said quietly. "I saw it," she said. They were halfway across the atrium when it happened. Diane was standing near the floral arch with a glass of champagne and a smile she had been practicing since the morning. She looked beautiful. She had planned to look beautiful. The dress was ivory and structured, and Victor had told her twice that she looked perfect, and she had smiled at him the way you smile when the thing you wanted has finally arrived. She was mid-sentence with someone from Victor's firm when she saw them. The champagne glass stopped, not lowered, stopped, held at the height of her lips, suspended, like a film frame catching on something and refusing to advance. Her eyes moved. From Andre's face, which was calm and unhurried and somehow broader than she remembered, to the woman beside him, to the woman's hand resting easy on his arm, to the way the woman tilted her head slightly and said something low that made Andre's expression shift, just barely, just enough, into something quiet and close. Diane's smile did not disappear. Smiles like hers were too practiced for that. But it went stiff at the edges, like something cooling too fast. Victor noticed her face before he noticed Andre. He followed her gaze across the atrium, and something moved behind his eyes, quick and flat, like a door closing, and he touched Diane's elbow once and said something she didn't fully hear. Patricia Pearson covered the distance in 20 seconds. She was a small woman in a lavender dress that she had clearly worn to more than one Sunday service, and she moved through the crowd with the quiet certainty of someone who had never needed an audience to know where she belonged. She took Andre's hand in both of hers. "Andre Washington." Her voice was warm and full. "You look wonderful." "Ms. Patricia." He leaned down and kissed her cheek. "You look well." I'm fine. She looked at him the way she always had, completely, without editing. "You eating right? You look like you're eating right." "I am." "Good." She glanced at Kenya with an expression of frank and immediate approval. "And who is this?" The introduction was made. Patricia held Kenya's hand a beat longer than necessary and said, with great sincerity, "It is so nice to meet you, sweetheart." Then she looked back at Andre and said again, unprompted, "You look wonderful." She returned to the family table. She did not look at her daughter. Diane came to their table 40 minutes into the reception. She moved with the practiced ease of a gracious host. Light smile, shoulders back, the performance of someone doing a kind and generous thing. She stopped at their table and said warmly, "I'm so glad you could make it. I really am. I always wanted good things for you, Andre." Andre looked at her for a moment. Then he smiled. Easy, unrevealing. "I know you did, Diane." Kenya set down her glass. Her voice was pleasant and entirely conversational. "Victor's worked with Caldwell Partners, hasn't he? I handled some documents adjacent to the Meridian filing. Small world." She said it lightly. "Just making talk." Victor had appeared at Diane's shoulder in time to catch the last sentence. The name landed on his face like a stone hitting still water. Diane looked between them, smiling, understanding nothing. Victor understood everything. The bathroom was off a marble hallway past the main bar. Diane stood at the sink with both hands gripping the cold stone edge, looking at her own reflection under the warm, flattering light. She told herself it didn't matter. The woman was beautiful, but so was she. Andre looked good, but she'd expected that. He always cleaned up well. That wasn't news. She told herself this clearly, to her own reflection, in the voice she used when she needed to believe something quickly. The reflection looked back at her and didn't say a word. The city was quiet at that hour. Andre drove with one hand on the wheel, and the coffee he'd grabbed from a gas station sitting in the cup holder, going cold the same way the one from the morning before had. Some habits were just geography. Something about being behind the wheel made him forget to drink it. Kenya had her shoes off, and her feet tucked sideways in the passenger seat. Not sloppy, just comfortable. The dress was still perfect. She looked like someone who had worked a long day and earned the right to take her shoes off. Neither of them spoke for the first several minutes. This was not uncomfortable. They had learned quickly, the two of them, that silence between people who are paying attention is not empty. Kenya went first. "The two men near the bar," she said. "During cocktails. I saw you clock them. Burwell and a man named Tate. Both of them showed up in documents I reviewed last year. Meridian filing, falsified property valuations in Fulton County. They weren't principals, but they were adjacent." She looked out the window. "Victor's adjacent to the same thing." Andre said nothing for a moment. The highway was mostly empty. The Atlanta skyline sat low and orange behind them in the side mirror. "How close?" he asked. "Close enough that I noticed." She turned to look at him. "I can't do anything with it professionally. That's not me being careful. That's the actual rule. I won't compromise my license for this. I know that. But I know someone at the Georgia Real Estate Commission." She said it the same way she said everything. Level, direct, without drama. "She's thorough, and she doesn't forget names. I can make an introduction. What you do with it after that is your business." Andre nodded. "That's enough." He meant it. Kenya heard that he meant it, which was the part that mattered. His phone buzzed on the dash as he was pulling onto her street. Darnell. He let it ring twice, then answered on speaker. "Where are you?" Darnell said. "Dropping Kenya home." "What happened?" "Victor happened." Darnell's voice had the particular quality it got when he was controlling something. "He's been making calls, asking around about Kenya, who she is, which firm, how long she and you have been. You know, he wants to know what she knows." The car was quiet for a beat. "He's fast," Kenya said. "He's scared," Darnell said. "Scared men move fast." Andre looked at the road. "How far did he get?" "Not far." Nobody in her circle talks to people like Victor without a reason to, and he doesn't have one. A pause. "But he's digging. That means he's already thinking about damage control." Andre thanked him and ended the call. He pulled to the curb in front of Kenya's building. Clean brick, good street, the kind of address that said its owner had made precise choices. He put the truck in park. Kenya gathered her shoes from the floor and held them in one hand. She didn't rush. "He's going to come at you before he comes at me," she said. "I know." "Good." She reached for the door handle, then stopped. She looked at him with the same directness she used in every room. "You doing all right?" Andre considered the question. Not the surface of it, but the inside of it, which was what she was actually asking. "Yeah," he said. "I am." She nodded once, like she believed him, and got out of the car. Darnell was already at the apartment when Andre got home. He had let himself in with the spare key he'd had for 2 years and helped himself to the last of the coffee. There were folders on the kitchen table. Not many. Darnell was not a man who padded a presentation. But what was there was exact. "Sit down," Darnell said. Andre sat. Darnell walked him through it without editorializing, the way he'd learned to do. Just the facts, laid out clean, in order. 4 of Victor's LLCs, registered over 6 years. Capital borrowed against properties at valuations that did not match market records. A pattern of transfers. Assets moved between the LLCs in a rotation that made the balance sheets look healthier than they were. 2 properties currently in Diane's name that carried debt structures she almost certainly did not understand. "When did the borrowing start accelerating?" Andre asked. Darnell pointed to a date on the timeline. "About 3 years ago, right around when Victor started courting Diane." Andre looked at the shape of it, the whole shape, laid out across his kitchen table under the overhead light. Numbers and dates and entity names that told a story about a man who had been building a house of credit on a foundation that was never as solid as he made it look. He looked at it for a long time. Then he looked at Darnell. "Keep going," he said quietly. there's more. 3 days passed. Andre worked them the way he worked every day. Early mornings, freight manifests, calls with carriers. A long Tuesday afternoon fixing a routing problem that had been bleeding money from the Eastern Run for 6 weeks. He found the fix. He wrote it up. He moved on. He did not think about Victor Garrett while he was working. He had learned a long time ago that a problem you can't act on yet is best left in a drawer. Take it out when you're ready. Not before. On Thursday evening, Darnell knocked twice and let himself in. The second folder was thicker than the first. He set it on the kitchen table without a word, and went to the refrigerator for the 2 bottles of water he knew would be there. He put one in front of Andre, and kept one for himself. Then he sat down. Andre opened the folder. The appraisals were the worst of it, at first. Darnell had pulled the original valuations on 4 separate properties that Victor had borrowed against over the previous 3 years. Then he had pulled the actual comparable sales for those same neighborhoods during those same periods. The numbers did not match. They were not close to matching. In 2 cases, Victor's appraisals came in nearly 40% higher than anything the market could support. He used the same appraiser on 3 of them, Darnell said. Man named Collis. Works out of a 1-room office in Smyrna. His name shows up in an inquiry the Real Estate Commission opened 8 months ago. He tapped the relevant page. It's preliminary, not public yet, but it's open. Andre turned the page. The LLC structure was underneath it. The same rotation Darnell had outlined 3 days before, but now with more detail. Assets moved in circles to keep any one entity from looking as exposed as it was. 2 of the LLCs had properties in Diane's name attached to debt instruments Andre was certain she had never read carefully. How much is she on the hook for? He asked. If the 2 properties under Diane review get called, somewhere between 80 and 110,000, depending on how the numbers settle. Andre was quiet. He turned to the next section of the folder, and that was where the temperature in the room changed. Darnell had found email records, not the emails themselves, but references to them in documents Victor had filed with one of his LLCs as internal correspondence logs, the kind of paper trail a man creates when he's trying to document his own planning for investors, and then forgets that documentation cuts both ways. The references were dated. They went back to a period that landed squarely inside Andre and Diane's marriage. Victor had been putting together what he called, in his own logged notes, a co-investment structure. A real estate opportunity he intended to bring to Diane, framed as a chance for her and her husband to build equity together. The pitch was designed to be delivered by Diane, not Victor. More personal that way. Harder to say no to your wife than to a developer you barely know. The structure would have used Andre's credit, his income documentation, his financial history, the joint account balances that Diane had full visibility into and had been quietly communicating to Victor for the better part of 8 months. The investment vehicle was one of the same LLCs now under inquiry. Andre read it twice. Then he set the page down flat on the table with both hands, the way a man sets something down when he needs his hands to be still. "How close?" he said. Darnell had already figured out this question was coming. 2 conversations, Darnell said. Maybe 3. She had everything she needed to bring it to you. The numbers, the pitch, the timing. Victor had been feeding it to her in pieces so she could deliver it natural. He paused. She never asked you. Because she left. Because she ran out of patience. Darnell's voice was flat. Not cruel, just accurate. She wasn't waiting on a conscience. She just wanted out faster than the plan required. Andre looked at the documents spread across his kitchen table, the appraisals, the LLC filings, the logged correspondence, the timeline that put Victor inside his marriage, inside his financial life, inside the information only a wife would have, for months before Diane ever said a word to him about any of it. He had paid off her student loans. He had worked extra shifts during her mother's medical crisis and never once made her feel guilty for the cost. He had been a husband in every way that word required. And she had been feeding his bank account balances to a man who was building a case to use Andre's name, Andre's credit, and Andre's good standing as the foundation for a fraud. He sat with that. The refrigerator hummed. Somewhere outside, a car passed slowly on the wet street. Andre looked up at his brother. She was going to use me to help him steal from us. Darnell met his eyes and did not look away. And leave you holding the bag. Neither man spoke for a while. Andre called Kenya at 7:45 the next morning. She picked up on the second ring. "I need to sit with you," he said. "Not a date. I need your eyes on something." "When?" she said. "Today, if you can. I have a deposition prep until 11. Come at noon. I'll order lunch." That was the whole conversation. He appreciated that about her. She did not require explanation before she decided. She assessed the request, assessed the person making it, and moved. Her office was on the 14th floor of a building in Midtown. Clean lines and floor-to-ceiling glass, the kind of space that announced competence without trying to. She met him in the small conference room off the main hallway, rather than her personal office. A deliberate choice. This was a working conversation. He set Darnell's folder on the table. She opened it and read without speaking. She did not skim. She read the way lawyers read. Slowly, sequentially, every page given its full weight before moving to the next one. Andre drank the coffee she had ordered for him and watched Atlanta through the window 14 floors below. People moving in all directions. The city doing what cities do. Kenya turned the last page and set it face down on the stack. "The appraisal structure," she said. "Collis. That name came up in ours. Your case, the litigation case I mentioned at the wedding. We weren't pursuing Collis directly, he was peripheral, but his name was in the documents we reviewed." She tapped the folder. "What your brother put together here aligns. The valuation spreads are consistent with what we saw." She paused. "I can't take this anywhere professionally. You understand that." "I know," Andre said. "That's not what I'm asking." Kenya looked at him for a moment. Steady. "What are you asking?" "I'm asking who I should talk to." She nodded once, as if that was exactly the right question. She turned to a clean page in the legal pad in front of her and wrote 2 names and 2 phone numbers. She tore the page off and slid it across the table. First name, Marcus Webb. He's a journalist, covers financial fraud in regional development, mostly Atlanta, and the corridor south to Macon. He is careful and he is thorough, and he does not burn sources. She tapped the name. Don't ask for anything. Don't want credit. Just put the documents in front of him and let him work. Andre looked at the name. He did not write anything down. Second name, Renata Cross. She was 2 years ahead of me at Emory. She's been inside the Real Estate Commission for the past 4 years. The inquiry into Collis. She may already know more than what's on record publicly. Kenya met his eyes. You can provide her with whatever Darnell compiled through public channels. Property records, LLC filings, anything that already exists in the public record. You are not a witness. You are not a complainant. You are a citizen providing supporting documentation. That's all? That is everything, she said. She did not offer anything further, and he did not ask her to. She had opened 2 doors. What happened past those doors was his to manage. He contacted Marcus Webb that afternoon. A short email, factual and without drama, with a document file attached. He included no cover letter. His name was at the bottom. Nothing else. He did not wait for a response before moving to the next thing. He called Renata Cross the following morning. She was professional and unhurried, the kind of person who had heard a great many things and calibrated accordingly. He described what Darnell had found and how he had found it. Public channels, title searches, LLC filings, the logged correspondence references. He offered to send the compiled records in a single organized file. Send it to the address I'm about to give you, she said. Not my commission email. He understood. He sent it within the hour. 3 days after that, his phone rang with a number he didn't recognize. He let it go to voicemail. The message was from a man named Todd Briggs, a name that meant nothing to Andre until he described himself as a professional associate of Victor Garrett's, reaching out on Victor's behalf to request a brief and informal sit-down. A business conversation, Briggs called it, a chance for two men to talk directly. Andre played the message twice. Then he called Darnell. "Victor wants a meeting," he said. Darnell was quiet for exactly 1 second. He's scared. "Yes. You going?" I already told his man yes. Darnell exhaled through his nose. Andre could picture him, sitting forward, jaw set, every instinct pushing toward something faster and louder than what Andre was going to ask of him. "Tell me the time and place," Darnell said. Andre told him. Then he said, "I need you close, not visible." Darnell nodded once. The restaurant was the kind of place that didn't need a sign you could read from the street. Small, private. A dozen tables at most, each one separated by enough space to have a conversation that stayed at your table. Victor had chosen it. That told Andre something. The man wanted walls around this, wanted it contained, wanted no witnesses who weren't already bought with $100 entree. Andre arrived 12 minutes early. He took the table in the back corner, the one with sightlines to the door, and ordered water. The server offered the menu. He declined. He set nothing on the table. He folded his hands, and he waited. Victor came through the door at 2 minutes past the hour. He was dressed well. Charcoal suit, open collar, no tie, the studied casualness of a man who wanted to look like money without looking like he was trying. His shoes were expensive. His watch was louder than his voice. He scanned the room once and found Andre without difficulty, and the smile that crossed his face was broad and social and did not touch his eyes at all. He crossed the room like he owned it. "Andre." He extended his hand. "Good of you to come." Andre shook it. "Sit down, Victor." Victor sat. He ordered sparkling water from the server without looking at the menu, the move of someone performing comfort. He straightened his jacket. He glanced around the room once more. Habit, or instinct, or both. Then he started talking. He talked for a while. Andre let him. Victor spoke about transition. How strange it was. Two men connected through the same woman. Both of them moving forward now, both of them with a lot to protect. He spoke about discretion and what it meant to handle things between professionals rather than letting outside parties make things complicated for everyone. He mentioned moving forward cleanly twice. He referenced mutual benefit once, lightly, like a man testing the temperature of water before stepping in. Andre watched him. He did not nod. He did not lean in. He held his water glass and let Victor's words fill the space between them and settle there, unmet. Victor paused. He was waiting for something, a signal, a softening, some indication that the door he was standing in front of was about to open. Andre gave him nothing, so Victor stepped through anyway. "Look," he said, his voice dropping half a register. "I think we're both smart enough to know that some situations are better resolved quietly, between the people actually involved. There are ways to make a conversation like this worth everyone's time." There it was. Andre reached down beside his chair and set a folder on the table. He opened it, slowly, and he turned it to face Victor. The first page was the appraisal document, the one with Collis's signature across the bottom and numbers that did not match the properties they were supposed to represent. The second page was the LLC timeline, the formation dates, the borrowing activity, the cross-collateralized assets laid out in a clean, readable column. The third page was the printed preliminary inquiry from the Georgia Real Estate Commission, case reference number at the top, Victor's company name in the first paragraph. Victor looked at the pages. His jaw tightened. The social warmth left his face the way water leaves a glass that's been tipped. completely, and all at once. Andre said, "I'm not here to negotiate." Victor's eyes came up. "You asked for this meeting," Andre said. "I came because you asked, and because you should see the shape of where this is going." Victor stared at him. Something was working behind his eyes, recalculating, reassessing, cycling through the options available to a man whose options were narrowing by the second. "You don't know what you're touching," Victor said. His voice was still controlled, but the edges had gone hard. "I have attorneys who handle exactly this kind of—" "You should call them," Andre said. "What you're doing here is—" "You should call them today," Andre said. Same tone, same pace, like he was discussing freight routes. Victor's hand came down flat on the table. Not a slam, a placement, firm and deliberate. "I don't know what she told you, or what you think you found, but I promise you, that if you push this, I will make it very unpleasant for you." Andre looked at him for a moment. Just looked. Then he closed the folder, pushed his chair back, and stood. He buttoned the middle button of his jacket. He picked up the folder. "I haven't done anything, Victor." His voice was even, unhurried. "This is just what turned up while I was living my life. Think about what that means." He did not wait for a response. He turned and walked through the dining room at the same pace he'd entered it. Unhurried, taking up exactly the space he was owed. Not 1 inch more. He did not look back. The parking lot was bright and quiet. His truck was where he'd left it. He got in, set the folder on the passenger seat, and sat for a moment in the silence. Then he picked up his phone and called Darnell. Darnell answered on the first ring. "We're on schedule," Andre said. Patricia Pearson's house was the same as Andre remembered it. The same wind chime on the front porch. The same small garden along the walkway, trimmed neat. The same wooden cross above the door. Not decorative, not performed, just there, the way it had always been there, because Patricia was a woman who meant the things she put on her walls. She called him on a Tuesday morning. Her voice was steady, the way it always was. Patricia did not do panic, had never done panic, had raised a daughter largely on her own through circumstances that would have broken other people, and had come out of it with a quietness that Andre had always respected. But underneath the steadiness, there was something heavier. He heard it. He told her he'd come that afternoon. He knocked twice. She opened the door before the second knock finished. "Come in," she said. She squeezed his hand at the door. Firm, brief, the grip of someone who wanted him to know he was welcome without making a production of it. "She's in the living room." Diane was sitting on the edge of the couch, straight-backed, arms folded across her chest, dressed like she'd somewhere else to be. She looked up when Andre walked in, and something moved across her face. Not guilt, not yet, but the brittle alertness of a person bracing for impact. "Andre," she said. "Diane?" Patricia had set the dining table. 4 chairs, but only 3 of them occupied. The 4th was empty. There was water on the table and nothing else. They sat. Patricia between them, not mediating, witnessing, her hands folded on the table, her eyes steady. She said nothing yet. Andre set his folder on the table. He opened it without ceremony and began to explain. He did not raise his voice. He did not editorialize. He laid it out the way he would have laid out a freight manifest, factually, in sequence, with each piece sitting in its proper place. Victor's LLCs, the borrowed money behind the borrowed money, the falsified appraisals, the preliminary commission inquiry that would become a public commission inquiry in a matter of weeks. Then he turned to the liability transfer documents, the ones Patricia had recognized. He explained in plain and careful language what they would have meant for Diane if she'd signed them, that her name, attached to those entities, would have made her a financial target when the whole structure came down. Not a partner, a shield. Diane listened. Her arms stayed folded for the first few minutes. Then, somewhere around the middle of it, her hands came apart and settled in her lap. "I didn't know it was that bad," she said. "I know," Andre said. "I knew he had. I knew there were some things, some restructuring." He said it was just Diane. His voice was not unkind. "I'm not asking you to explain it to me." She stopped. She looked at the documents. Her jaw was tight. Andre turned to the last page of the folder. "This is what I nearly signed," he said. "Victor was positioning me as the co-investor during the marriage. Your job was to bring it to me at the right moment. If I'd signed it, when all of this came apart, my name would have been attached to fraudulent assets, my credit, my business, everything I built." Diane's eyes came up. They were glassy, but she was holding herself together. Barely. "You didn't know that part," Andre said. It wasn't a question. She shook her head. "No." Patricia, who had been silent through all of it, looked at her daughter. When she spoke, her voice was quiet, but it had the weight of something that had been waiting a long time to be said. "I told you who that man was," she said. "You wanted what he looked like." Diane said nothing. There was nothing to say. The words landed and stayed. Andre closed the folder. He slid it across the table toward Diane. "These are copies. Everything you need to show your attorney. If you walk into that meeting with this, he cannot transfer that liability to you. You'll be ahead of it." Diane looked at the folder. "Why are you giving me this?" Andre was quiet for a moment. "Because I'm able to," he said, "and because it's the right thing to do." He did not dress it up. He did not add anything to it. He pushed his chair back and stood. He picked up his jacket from the back of the chair. Patricia rose with him, a small, dignified movement, and walked him toward the front door without being asked. Behind him, he heard Diane say his name. He stopped. He did not turn around yet. "I'm sorry, Andre." He stood still for a moment. The wind chime moved on the porch outside. Through the small window beside the door, the afternoon light was flat and pale and honest. "I know," he said. He looked at Patricia once, briefly. She gave him one slow nod. Then he opened the door, stepped through it, and pulled it closed behind him. He did not look back. The article ran on a Thursday morning. Andre saw it before most people did. He was in the warehouse parking lot. Same spot as always, coffee going cold, tablet lit up in the gray early light. When the notification came through from the Business Journal. He'd set the alert weeks ago. He'd known it was coming. But there was still something about seeing Victor Garrett's name in print, surrounded by words like investigation and commission inquiry and undisclosed liabilities, that made him sit with it for a moment before moving on. He read it once. Then he set the tablet down and drank his coffee. It moved fast after that, faster than even Andre expected. By Friday, the first LLC was dissolved. A holding company called Garrett Development Partners II, which existed mostly as a vessel for borrowed money shuffled between accounts. By the following Tuesday, a second one followed. 3 properties entered lien review simultaneously, flagged by the Commission's investigative office. The Atlanta Business Journal ran a follow-up. This time the article was longer. The language was less careful. The business associates who had attended the wedding, the ones who'd smiled wide for photographs at the reception and clinked glasses with Victor like men who expected to be standing next to something successful, began their distancing quietly and quickly. A press release here, a statement through a spokesperson there. The language was always the same. No ongoing business relationship, no formal partnership. Wishing all parties well. Professional disappearing acts, performed without apology. Victor's name, which had traveled well in certain Atlanta circles for years. Dinner invitations, charitable galas, the kind of events where proximity to the right people was its own currency, went silent in those circles almost overnight. Not dramatically. That was the thing about the way these worlds worked. There was no announcement, no confrontation. People simply stopped mentioning his name, stopped returning the calls, stopped setting a place at the table. The absence spoke for itself. Diane did what she needed to do. She walked into her attorney's office with the documents Andre had left on Patricia's dining room table, and she told her attorney what she knew about the falsified appraisals, the conversations she'd been present for, the numbers that hadn't added up in ways she'd told herself not to examine too closely. She was not brave about it. She was not noble. She was a woman protecting herself with information she had been given by someone who owed her nothing, and she knew the difference. Her attorney filed the paperwork. Diane's name was removed from the liability transfer before it could be recorded. The commission's investigation picked up a new thread. She did not call Andre. Patricia did briefly, just to let him know the paperwork had gone through. She handled it, Patricia said. That was all. Good, Andre said. That was all. The separation filing came through 2 weeks after the article. The marriage, which had lasted 4 months from ceremony to legal end, concluded with less noise than it had begun with. The Buckhead venue, the embossed invitations, the champagne towers and the Instagram captions, and the performance of a life that had arrived somewhere, all of it folded back into itself like a stage set after the audience had gone home. Diane moved into a smaller apartment on the other side of the city. Andre knew this because Darnell told him, and Darnell told him because Darnell kept track of things. Andre did not ask for updates after that. There was nothing there that required his attention anymore. Victor's message came through Darnell on a Wednesday evening. Darnell called while Andre was at the kitchen table going over freight projections. "Got something for you," Darnell said. Victor reached out through Marcus. You remember Marcus, from the old Edgewood days. Victor's been trying to find an angle. Marcus told him he doesn't have one and called me after. What did Victor say? Darnell's voice was flat. He wants to know why you're doing this to him. Andre was quiet. He looked at the spreadsheet on the table in front of him. Route projections, contract renewals, a column of numbers that was larger than it had ever been. He thought about the folder he'd assembled with Darnell over the course of 2 years, document by document, pulled from public records and property filings and commission databases, none of it manufactured, all of it simply found. He thought about sitting across from Victor in that restaurant and telling him, "This is just what appeared while I was living my life." He thought about the word doing. "Tell him I said he's right," Andre said. There was a pause on the other end of the line. Then Darnell laughed, a real one, low and full. The first genuine laugh Andre had heard from him in months. It came out of him like something that had been waiting a long time for permission. 14 months later, Andre Washington owned a Sunday morning. Not the way you own a thing you bought. The way you own a thing you earned, quietly, completely, without needing to explain it to anyone. He was sitting in the living room of the house he and Kenya rented on the west side of Atlanta, in a neighborhood that was in the middle of becoming something. New paint on old porches. A coffee shop that had opened 6 months ago 3 blocks down and already had a line on weekends. Andre understood the pattern professionally. He also just liked living somewhere that was still in the process of deciding what it was going to be. It reminded him of something. The armchair by the window was his. He'd bought it second-hand, had it reupholstered in a dark gray fabric that Kenya said looked like something from a hotel lobby, which she meant as a compliment. He was in it now, with a book open in his lap, and the kind of stillness around him that had taken years to build. Not the stillness of a man holding something in, but the stillness of a man who had put things down. His coffee sat on the side table, still warm. From the back of the house, Kenya's voice moved through the rooms in clean, measured sentences. She was on a call. A Sunday call. Because Kenya worked on Sundays the way some people breathed on Sundays, without thinking about it, without resentment, because she genuinely loved her work, and had never once pretended otherwise. That was one of the things about her. She didn't perform who she was. She just was it, all the way through. Andre could hear her without making out the words. That was enough. The sound of her working in the same space where he was resting felt like something that had taken a long time to find. Two people operating at full capacity in the same house, neither one shrinking, neither one waiting on the other to catch up. He turned a page. The Atlanta Business Chronicle was folded on the end table beside his coffee. He'd picked it up from the front steps earlier, mostly out of habit, and paged through it before settling into the book. He almost missed the item entirely. It was on page 9, a small block of text near the bottom of the page, tucked between a notice about a restaurant group restructuring and an update on a mixed-use development project near the Beltline. Settlement reached in Real Estate Commission disciplinary matter involving regional developer Victor J. Garrett. Terms undisclosed. Professional license suspended pending further review. That was all. No photograph, no follow-up. The type was small, the kind of small that meant there was nothing left to say, that the story had already run its course somewhere earlier, and this was just the receipt. Andre read it once. He set the paper down on the end table next to his coffee and picked his book back up. There was no surge in his chest, no satisfaction that rose and crested the way he might have expected once, back when the wound was still raw and everything felt like it needed a response. What he felt was closer to nothing, or not nothing exactly, but the clean, specific absence of something that used to take up space, like reaching for a bruise and finding smooth skin. Kenya came around the corner a few minutes later, phone still in hand, call finished. She was wearing one of Andre's old college sweatshirts and had her hair up, and she moved through the living room the way she moved through every room, like she had a right to be there, which she did. She sat down beside him on the couch, close enough that their knees nearly touched, and tucked one leg up under herself. "What were you reading?" she asked. He handed her the folded paper. She took it, found the item, read it. Her eyes moved across the small block of text once, unhurried. Then she handed the paper back, said nothing, and returned to her phone, already thumbing toward her next email. Andre set the paper on the end table. Outside, Atlanta was going about its Sunday. A car rolled past slow, music coming through the windows, soft enough to hear and too far away to make out. A kid on the sidewalk across the street was bouncing a basketball against the concrete in a steady, patient rhythm. The coffee shop 3 blocks down was already pulling people in. The neighborhood was doing what it did, becoming, slowly and without ceremony, the thing it was always going to be. Andre picked up his coffee. Still warm, barely. He had a call at noon. A contract renewal with a logistics partner out of Savannah that Darnell had been working for 3 months. The kind of number that, 2 years ago, would have taken his breath away, and now just meant there was more work to do, which was exactly the right kind of problem to have. He looked out the window for a moment, not at anything specific, just out. Then he smiled, not at what had fallen, but at what he had built, and at the fact that he was still building it, and at the particular quiet of a Sunday morning that belonged entirely to him. He picked up his phone and dialed in. I hope you enjoyed that one. Be sure to like the video and subscribe so you don't miss the next story. I've picked out 2 more for you that I think you'll really like.